Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Food News and Chews Radio. It's Chef Jeremy Ashby, Sylvia Lovely, and we're going to talk to, in the second half of the show today, Glean, Kentucky. Great
Love
local
that
organization.
organization.
But we're going to start things off.
Yeah.
We're going to start things off with something, and I don't know what this story is. All I know
it's
it
my
involves
story.
a dog and some roast beef.
Yeah, I'm putting out an APB on whoever did this to me.
Uh-oh.
All right, guys, you're not old enough, but I was prepping for a colonoscopy. Can I say that on the air?
I have one in 2 weeks. Yeah.
I won't say too much then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is it kind of like kitchen prep? Do you like cut some onions and then like get a little
no,
garlic over
Jeremy.
it?
I will
How do you
say,
prep?
It's
No.
worse.
If it's anything like my last one, there's a lot of tears
You did-
involved.
Oh, you've done them. You,
Yeah,
you
this
know.
will be my second, and it's...
You know.
Well,
it-
why?
You know. Okay,
Brother.
well, that's the setting, guy.
Okay.
That's the setting. I'm prepping, okay? And I decide I can walk my dog. I can do this. I can walk the dog.
You left the house?
Yes, I left the house. So I'm walking toward the Beaumont Trail, which, Jeremy, you're familiar with the Beaumont
Oh, yeah.
Trails.
Oh, yeah.
And I see what looks in the distance like a leaf laying there. And my dog immediately runs. Jeremy knows my dog and how he is kind
Yeah,
of
I'll
a
check that
frisky
out.
little dog. And he checks it out, and suddenly I look, and he has I look immediately, and I see what looks to be a perfect 3 to 5 pound Kroger cut roast. I mean, it just looks
Like
like
raw?
something you would. It was raw with no packaging.
Okay, so it's out of the package. It's
Out
just
of
a
the
piece
packaging,
meat.
it's just laying there, and the dog picks it up immediately. Well, guess what my chances are of getting that beef out of his mouth?
Who loses a roast beef
I
on
know
a
how this
hiking
happened.
trail?
You do?
I do.
Okay.
All right, let me tell the rest of the story. So I drug him back by holding on to the end of the beef
Yeah.
that was hanging out both sides of his mouth.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was about to get so sick. And I drag him into the kitchen, and I'm like, how do I get this beef out of this dog's mouth? So I get a knife. I'm trying to figure out how to cut the beef. I'm thinking if I cut both sides off of it, at least he'll only eat the middle, because I know he's going to be sicker than a dog. Anyway. So I do that, and I'm like having no luck because I'm trying to hold on to the meat, get a knife.
Yeah, he's not letting go.
So I decide, okay, I've got to do something crazy besides call Jeremy,
Right, yeah.
which is what I usually do when I'm in the middle of an
It's a dog
emergency.
emergencies.
He's had other emergencies.
Can-
Well, I'm
Let me-
close.
So
Let me ask you about this beef, though. Did it look fresh or did it smell?
it was fresh,
Okay.
which is what alarmed me later
What
because
time of
I
day was
called
this?
the vet. This was a Monday, and it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I decide I'm going to have a contest here, which will win, peanut butter or beef. So I get the jar of peanut butter open, and I stick my bloodied hand into the jar, and I get a big glob
There
of
you
it,
go.
and I put it under his nose, and he drops the beef.
Okay, so I mean, he had to think that one through. He probably regrets it now, dropping the beef for the peanut butter. But
know.
it worked.
Did he actually eat any of the beef, or did he just
No,
hold
he
on
just
to
like
it?
his teeth were clenched into it, and then my hand was clenched into it.
That was the best day of that dog's life, and you ruined it.
Here's what the vet said later, though it scared me to death. She said, well, was it poisoned? Did somebody put it out there to poison something? And the dog never got sick, and I didn't get sick, even though my hands were certainly
My
immersed
guess
in it.
is, with the weather on Sunday, that another dog had come by somebody's picnic table and or grocery bag as they were
Okay. But
shopping,
why would the dog have given it up?
grabbed it and ran. And then probably, I don't know, something on the just dropped it on the trail somehow. I don't know. How does this happen,
Okay,
guy?
here's my guess.
Here's
That's-
your guess.
Okay, somebody was grilling. All right.
Yeah, and the dog ran it.
And no, they put their 3 pound roast beef on the next to their grill, that
Yeah.
little table, and they went in the house to get a beer.
Random dog.
And
got
when
it.
they came by, hawk, bird
Oh.
of prey, swooped
I like it.
down, grabbed it, flew off with it, and then
Yeah.
realized it couldn't carry it that far.
So
Yeah.
it dropped it.
So it dropped it.
That's exactly what happened.
That's my old.
I like
That's
it.
the only way that it could have happened, because a dog
Otherwise,
wouldn't have
how
let it go.
does a beef? If anyone lost a roast beef near Beaumont, could you at least tell us about it?
Yeah,
That's my
to know.
only thought is like bird of prey. Some kind
No,
of
that's a
bird picked it
great
up and flew off
guess
with it.
because then somehow he lost it. The bird lost it.
Yeah, because it probably realized it can't fly too far with this big
Big
roast
giant
beef.
This
thing.
cow.
Yeah,
so
right.
anyway, that's my beef story.
Well,
that's my
I'm
story.
glad we solved this case.
Yes, thank you, sleuth.
I'm just like really sad for that dog because that dog had a whole
He
roast beef.
wanted
and
it so
it was
bad.
literally the best day of
But
his
what
life.
was I going to do besides call Jeremy?
Yeah, well, it sounds like they were trying to trap me in the neighborhood, like leaving
Yeah.
little pieces of meat around the neighborhood for me to. They probably got a snare there for me.
All right, let me ask you this: if someone wanted to trap you and use food, what
Yes.
would they use? Like, what could they trap you with?
Pizza.
Yeah.
Country ham.
Fried chicken.
A hamburger.
If I see a bucket of fried chicken somewhere,
fried chicken,
you could just
yeah.
drop a net on me.
Well, I have like 3 of those.
Yeah.
Chicken would be one, pizza, or just a hamburger.
Just a hamburger.
I love hamburgers.
They're great.
By the way, don't eat found food. Like, if you're just walking around, you see a street burger,
'Cause
don't eat it.
It scared me when the
Yeah.
vet said, that could have been poison that they put out. I'm like, well,
Here's the
we're
thing,
already
though.
done for.
I feel if someone was going to poison it, they would not have put a whole roast beef.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been a big one.
And at 2:00 in the afternoon. I think your theory is correct.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean-
it was a bird.
The bird was gleaning.
Yes.
He was
Yeah.
gleaning.
Yes.
Poor bird.
Poor bird.
We're going to talk about gleaning in the second half of the show with Glean, Kentucky, great organization.
Okay, now you know some trends that are going on out there, right?
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about this, Jeremy, to see if this is true. But some of the numbers are coming back and saying that the one thing about work, people are, obviously been going back to the office, and now most people are back where they were pre-pandemic work locations. Some people are still working from home, but most people have gone back to the office. They say the one thing that has not come back are after work get-togethers and happy hours, like staff happy hours. Most people don't want to do anything after
I
work
get it.
with their coworkers. If they do things like a meal, right, they do it during work hours because people just don't want to go out anymore.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that trend with happy hours?
Kind of. It's the dynamics a little bit earlier, and you're right. The office isn't coming anymore. It's friends, and
Right.
Interesting.
It's not the
Well, I
it's
guess
not the
they were-
group of
Some were
suits.
working remote, maybe.
Maybe so. And I don't know what that culture change really is. Whether people just did it because they thought they had to, and then now it stops, and they're like, I'm just not going to pick back up on that.
No,
I
it's-
mean, like the Japanese culture, like if your boss says we're going out for a beer,
You're
it's
going.
like required, right?
Yeah. And they're not saying that people aren't going out to happy hour anymore. They're saying they're not going with coworkers. Are
So
not
I'm
going
seeing
out
that.
I
together.
don't think we're co-ing anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, people are still, maybe it's coming back because people still want their cocktails and that sort of thing. But I think
Also,
we had that interruption.
People don't want to talk about work after work. People
That's
never
true, too.
did. They never wanted to talk about work after work.
And I'll have to say this too. I'm going to put this out there. Finances aren't exactly the easiest either coming out of a pandemic. Or I mean, we have a happy hour right now at Azort. It's 4 to 6 p.m. every day, and that's $3 draft beers, $5 wells, and then half price glasses of wine. Well, we're a little higher end restaurant than some. $3 for a draft really isn't that cheap compared to 3 years ago.
Right.
$1.95
Sure.
would have been
True.
one thing. So that could
may have
factor in
altered
the
things.
equation too.
Maybe
It's just
people are hanging out in their backyard more.
I think they probably got used to their own stuff at home.
I think so. I think they did get used to that, and then combined with
Right.
all
Now
the
they
other
still
stuff.
come out to celebrate and they
Now,
drink all the
They
things.
tell us that donuts and coffee, though, are really skyrocketing. Little places to go have pastries and coffee, and we see that here. You've got donut shops, got like 7 of a.
Shipley is opening, I believe,
Yeah.
3 is what they're
Wow.
opening. They're opening a few around the area.
Biscuit Belly
So,
is opening up.
Is there a
another one.
connection to? I mean, because it can't be people are drinking alcohol less. And maybe substituting with the pastries and coffee, because you see the national stats and alcohol sales are not down.
Yeah, no.
Maybe in coffee and donuts, maybe during work hours because people are working remote. I work remote, so one of the things I do is I go like to a Panera or something just to hang out and listen in on conversations.
Well, they
Okay, I
also
just thought about another theory.
Oh, go ahead.
And I think there might be something to this too. Could it be maybe the exit of the boomer generation from the workforce?
Yeah.
That also kind of maybe makes sense for, at that stage in life, you're more interested in coffee and pastries.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, it's a
true,
big
and
segment of the
I'm the
population
edge of the baby
that's kind of
boomers, yeah.
outside of that workforce or on the edge of it,
Yeah.
and some didn't return after the pandemic.
I think a lot of the old traditions we had around work are gone.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of left, like you said, with the boomers who
Yeah.
retired pre-pandemic. Also, one of the new date hotspots is coffee. It used to be people would go out to dinner. Hey, you have a first date with me. Let's go out to dinner. And now a lot of people are doing daytime dates on their lunch breaks and going to get coffee.
You want to hear
You tell
another?
a lot about somebody
You want
by
to hear
their
another
coffee.
phenomenon? I find with a lot of work meetings, I want to go to a counter place because you avoid the awkwardness of who picks up the check.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a very awkward moment sometimes.
You know what? I can see that. I think that sometimes business luncheons are awkward. They're awkward for the server, they're awkward for the host, and they're awkward for the guests. Because who's supposed to be in charge? Usually the host of the table, right? But sometimes it doesn't play out that way. And nobody knows what to do and when to order and how to order and what to get, or if I can order that.
When the server comes up and says, will that be one or two? There's sometimes an awkward silence.
Right.
Because you didn't come to any kind of an agreement on who was going to pay. And I can't stand awkward silences. So a lot of times I'll just say me, you know.
Is that a new... I feel like now, instead of saying, it used to be they would just give you a check. Now, then they would ask, is this one check? Now they just say, is this two checks?
Right.
You know what I mean? Now they almost default to, this is going to be two different checks instead of one.
Yeah. Maybe
I think that's almost the accepted default now.
Yeah. I don't know. There's some strange things going on out there, but...
Well, has dating culture changed? You know?
Is that part of it? About that.
You know?
I wonder about that.
I think.
Are you expected to
we've
pay
been out of the dating
I've been out
world
of date for a while.
But I think a lot of people, what they're saying is they're not doing, people are still drinking, but they're drinking at home. So
but what about a date?
When they go out, that's why they go out to coffee. They're the non-alcoholic options. Instead of going to a bar, you go to a coffee house. Instead of going to a diner,
are
you go to
guys still picking up the date tab?
I don't know.
That's a great question.
I mean, I'm not on the scene, but I would have a hard time not. I'm still in that generation.
Well, sure. Right. Well, what about like Fields when he's on his first date?
Right. What am I supposed to teach him?
Yeah. What are you supposed to teach him or your sons?
Yeah. I think
because that's the male role.
I think in that way, I hate to say the phrase chivalry is dead, but I think in a way it's different.
Well,
it's
it was asked to die in some ways.
Yeah.
Well, girls and women now are more equal in the workplace, so it's like, ooh.
You know, the number one conversation I hear if I'm listening in to when people are paying for dinner, it's, hey, do you want me to Venmo you? I'll Venmo you. Do you want me to Cash App you?
Yeah.
Because instead of making it hard for the server,
they just
it's like, hey, one check
ticket,
and I'll just everyone will Cash App me.
Yeah, I'm actually ready for the Apple Pay Venmo to enter the restaurant scene, and it's just for that same thing. Just do the reader stuff, bypass the credit card situation. Just cut them out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Also like, hey, we're going to split the check. It's just so easy.
Yeah.
Nobody has to deal with
anything.
Apple Pay,
Venmo.
Yeah, Venmo, Zelle.
I know Venmo.
I mean, as a business, I think it's a payment option.
Yeah. I think most places offer...
But you said it as a combo. Apple Pay, Venmo?
Apple Pay, and what I mean by that is more digital pay stuff like that. You know, the chip card for your credit card, but there's ways to input your...
Oh, that may be
use your phone. Generation. A lot of places are doing Apple Pay now. Most places that have debit also have Apple option where you can just lean your phone on there and pay right from your Apple account.
Well, see, some places will have a little QR code at your table.
Yeah.
And and your servers run everything by seat number. So when you're ready to go, you get your bill independently, pay on your phone, get up and go.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of maybe people like that, or maybe they like that personal service too. Who knows?
Right.
Do you think? I am curious about this. Do you think that there is a correlation between how much you tip versus how you pay? Meaning, do you think would you tip more if you're paying in cash? Would you tip more if you're paying with a credit card? Would you tip more if you never interact with a person, other than bringing food, if you do just get a QR code? Do you think that affects how you tip?
Well, if you don't have enough cash, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just probably human psychology. I only don't have enough cash to do 20% or whatever. So for me, it's always 20, more for, great service. But I think that would affect the probably generosity. I think cash hurts more to give away for some people.
Well, I'll tell you.
Right. I think you're right.
Now, I will tell you.
Yeah.
You asked about what I tell my sons. And one thing I have taught my sons is if you're going to go out to dinner, you're going to go out somewhere where tipping is involved, always have cash on you because it's so much better to tip in cash than to tip on a card just for the server's sake. And
I'm not even going to tell you that's wrong. If you guys out there, if you want to help a young guy
help a server out, cash.
People, tip cash.
And I always make a point of saying, listen, I'm going to zero this out. I'm going to tip you in cash. Yeah. And they're always very happy with
feel
that.
like, yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah. It's a little thing you could do that really helps someone in the restaurant industry's day.
That's great.
Yeah, I never can have enough cash on hand. I got kids.
What?
Yeah.
So what's happening? You got a new menu coming out anytime soon?
Yeah, we're coming up on that. My tomato guy had a whole other field ripen up, so that kind of kept me in the summer corn squash season for a few
that's
more
not
weeks.
bad.
But that's not a bad thing. It's actually supposed to be up until October. I just thought I was going to get cut out early. So I got a little anxious, but we're starting to work on some new menus for fall.
Keeneland's coming.
Keeneland's coming, and I don't know, guys. I'm feeling more and more Italian lately.
Ooh, I like
We're
Italian.
just kind of me and the guys have been talking where we want to go, and it just looks like a big, delicious mess of Southern and European and umami, and it's just I can't tell you what Azor is. It's gonna be cool. It's just a lot of fun. How's
Is
that?
Italian a new trend? Not a new trend, but is that one of the more popular flavor profiles next year or so? Is it pasta? Is that kind of making a big
Never
comeback?
wears out with me.
Our little restaurant is unique. We have our own little world, our own little sphere, and people and dinners and things just influence it. Some things just take, and it takes a different tone. I mean, I look back on some menus and it was all French, and some were part Asian, part Cuban. You know, this just right now we're starting to lean towards that Italian feel. We have some pretty gifted Italian chefs. We're getting pretty good at pasta. So
I know
I'm
what's
gonna
happening.
See where this goes.
I know what's happening to you.
You know, also
You're going to Italy.
Then I'm going to be very inspired when I'm there. And I could use that. Just come back and teach everything I ate to these guys.
Well, you know what? So popular were your 4 region dinners.
And maybe that's what it is. I think we saw the success of that, and we're like, you know what? This is delicious. And we like the
No
way.
one's ever mad at pasta.
I know.
Also, if the
And
more
garlic
I
bread and
live
all
in
the good stuff.
This region, the more I realize how Italian it is in terms of fresh produce, simply cooked and prepared. I mean, I think the philosophies of cooking in the American South and Italy can a lot of
Jeremy,
ways can match.
What if you won the super lottery tomorrow and you could start a whole new restaurant? You didn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
What would you start?
So I'd want a very blank canvas.
Okay.
And I would probably go in there without any hood fans. I would probably be all electric and some fuel. I would probably redesign how a restaurant is.
Really?
And I would probably keep it flowing to where there's no steady walls or doors. The dining rooms and kitchens can be reconfigured anywhere in the restaurant at any given time. So a completely flowable. Give me a square.
Wow.
Give me a big square barn.
No
Wow.
kitchen, all air fryers.
I want the kitchen over
Well-
here one day. Sometimes I want it in the middle of the dining
Sure.
room.
You want a movable
I
feast.
want a portable. I want a catering kitchen, the portable
Yeah.
kitchen inside the
Okay.
restaurant.
All right,
can
we
be
got to
moved.
take a quick break because when we come back, we're going to talk about gleaning and how you can help glean Kentucky. Don't go anywhere. It's Food News and Chews Radio. Hey, welcome back. It's Food News and Chews Radio. There's a concept you might not be familiar with, but it's called gleaning, and it has biblical origins, as I understand it. But there is a place in town called Glean, Kentucky, which gleans farm fields to make sure that food doesn't go to waste. Executive Director Ben Southworth is on with us. Am I right about the kind of the biblical
Yeah,
origins of gleaning?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's this really old concept, and I think it really was a different context back then, but the idea, I think it's from the book of Ruth, was that you would leave the 4 corners of your
Yeah.
field unharvested, and if people needed it, then you needed to share
What
it
a
with
great
them.
concept.
I've
Yeah.
never heard that one for some reason.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I guess I never really knew the definition of the word glean.
Yeah.
I think that I understood the concept, and for some reason I see Glean, Kentucky, because I knew exactly what they did.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I don't really know the proper.
You know, you're busy all year long, but not all year. When are you busy? You're busy right now, I bet.
Oh,
Your
we're
stuff is
especially
laying-
busy right now. I mean, orchard season is coming, and apples are,
And
all
things
over
also-
trees. But
What do you do with tomatoes?
oh my gosh,
Millions of tomatoes are out there.
yeah, or squash. I mean, people
Oh,
will call
squash.
us, and
Peppers.
you would never run out of it. But we do stuff all year round with grocery stores as well. But especially now, like June through October or so, we really are just
Let
going
me
all
ask
the
a
time.
question. When I was putting on big banquets in Frankfurt for the legislature, one year, it's been 10 years ago, one year we had a big full, I mean, they love shrimp, right? So we would have shrimp and all the good stuff. And they closed down a day early. And we had all this bounty.
Right.
And we weren't allowed to give it away. it broke my heart.
Right.
Is that changing at all?
It has, and I think that the state legislature has had a lot to do with that. They did this bill probably 2017, 2018 that is basically just a restatement of this federal law, the Emerson Act, which is just to remove liability from people who would donate food.
That's what they told us.
So there was always this federal law, but I think they really wanted to clarify that, hey, here in Kentucky, that's
You're
okay too.
okay.
So we have
there's
to
a
be
lot
more
of
careful with meat, of course,
Yeah.
than,
But people talk about, food at grocery stores getting thrown away in the dumpsters, and that was, that's something that's actually
Heartbreaking.
been worked out a little bit, like you said, because. But it's amazing. What I learned from working with you guys was after the harvesters or whatever, the machinery, the people go through a field and pick all the food, there's still a lot of food left in that field.
Oh, yeah.
It's just harder to get.
Right, or sometimes it's, the, quote, ugly produce that doesn't do well on a store shelf, right?
Yeah, that's right. People are obsessed with that, but it's changing. I think that it's changing a little bit.
I think an ugly potato tastes just about the
Or
same as a beautiful one, right?
misshapen potato.
Yeah, I often ask for seconds.
Do you
That's,
really?
Well, yeah. I mean, because I deal with a lot of small little hobby farmers. 2 or 3 guys primarily, and it seems like they can, grow the beautiful heirloom tomatoes and my baby squash and get squash blossoms and all the really pretty stuff. But just like everybody else, they have an excess of stuff that's brown. They don't want to bring to a restaurant. I'm like, if you're gonna do something, bring it here. We'll pay pennies on it, whatever, and we'll make something.
Make it
out of
into
If you're
something.
making salsa, what do you care if it's a
Yeah,
pretty
you don't
tomato?
care.
Yeah, sauce tomatoes, who cares if it's got a blemish on it? And then the ones that are really, there's a point in time in a tomato where it just becomes too soft to eat. You're just like, it's a little too squishy for me. But that's what goes right in the pot for tomato butter sauce.
Which there's a lot of stuff going on right now with tomatoes. But you've got a big event coming up.
We do,
Before too much time goes by, talk about your big event.
Sure. So we do every year, every fall, a fundraiser called Burgers and Beets. We've done it all over the place.
Burgers and Beets.
Yeah, and it's we've got this cute little Beet logo on the poster and everything, playing a guitar. For years, we used to do it out at Wallace Station at Weta Michael's restaurant.
Right.
But we moved it this year into town to the Moondance Amphitheater.
That's right by us.
Yeah, and I hope that's just a little easier for people to get to. We have had so many more people interested this year than we've
That's
had for
great
years.
news.
So it's been good, yeah.
Now, Beats, not the beat. It's kind of a play on words because it's more of a music festival, right?
Tell us about what happens at this event.
Yeah, so we'll be there from 5:30 till 8. You can buy tickets at the door or online ahead of time, but we'll have live music basically the whole time. It's this great band called the Bent Penny Band who have been partnering with us for years now doing this. They do lots of old kind of classic rock covers. They have lots of great, things for the crowd to get involved. They'll have people come up and beat on a cowbell for a song, and it's just it's a
Will
fun
you have
time.
food of some kind?
We'll have some food trucks. I'll have to look and see the names of them off the top of my head, but we'll have bouncy castles for kids, and we'll have some folks from the Explorium coming to do a bubble station and trying to make it as family-friendly, kid-friendly as we
Now,
can.
this is a fundraiser, so how much are the tickets?
I think, and I'll have to be sure, but I think right now online ahead of time they're $20 a person to get in.
That's really
so,
good.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, you'll buy your own food at the food truck, of course, with that price. But for a nice night and some music, I think that's a pretty good get.
And it's when?
Kids are free, by the way. I'm on the
Yes.
website
All right.
right now. If you go to Glean, Kentucky, or just Google it, you'll find it. But tickets in advance are $20, day of $25. VIP is $35, and kids 12 and under are free. 538 Moondance Amphitheater.
Okay, so what is VIP?
So VIP will just get you a seat at a nice
okay.
table, but otherwise, if you want to just do that
Come and
$20
mill
ticket,
around.
bring your lawn chair and hang out. Yeah.
Oh, that's tremendous. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should be a great time, and we'll give our mission moment. And really, we've always wanted this to be a volunteer appreciation event, just a celebratory event for us in the fall, right in the middle
raise
of
your
busy
profile
season.
in the
Exactly.
fall, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the volunteering, kind of explain to me how that works. Because I imagine gleaning, there's probably some people that wouldn't mind going to a field and getting their hands dirty.
Right.
But there's
Yeah.
probably other ways, whether it's delivery. Explain all the ways you can
Yeah.
help out.
Great question.
So that one you've mentioned is definitely really available right now. We got a
Yeah.
call from someone with a big
Farmhands.
raspberry patch. I think we're going out on Tuesday to pick up from. So if you want to come out and pick produce, a lot of times people have a more romantic idea of what that might look like than
Yeah.
what it actually is. It involves a lot of sweating and
But
mud
that's
and everything.
really great,
But,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, like my new favorite show is Alaska. It's like Life Under Zero. And it's these people showing how they trap the rabbits, and then they love on the rabbits when they pick them up off the trap because the animal gave all. And people don't have the connection to the land anymore.
Right.
Well, also think about how much all this food was cultivated. It was grown. People put their time and sweat into it. And a lot of it came out of the field. But what's left in there is still a lot of stuff that's just going to die, literally die on the vine, unless it's eaten, unless it's used. People have to go in specifically and get it. Otherwise, it's going to go to waste.
And how does it get used? How does it reach the end user?
Right. So I think the unique thing about what we do is we don't serve individuals directly at all.
Okay.
We work with other agencies who already have feeding programs. So anything as big as a God's Pantry or the Hope Center here in Lexington, down to agencies that are serving 5 or 10 people a week at a church basement for their weekly dinner. Anyone who has a feeding program already existing, we just want to supplement that with fresh produce, because produce is expensive. It can be hard to store. We try to deliver it the day that they're going to use it, so they won't have to worry about that sort of stuff. We just want to support.
And you don't do meat.
We don't do meat. We'll occasionally get asked for, to pick that kind of stuff up. We're trying to get in a position, I think, where we can do more of that, refrigerating our vans and getting some licenses worked out.
That's tricky.
Yeah, we're working on it, and we are getting asked that more and more, it seems like, to do that sort of work. But currently it's just all produce.
What about raising awareness so that people understand? I hope it's happening. What is it? 40% of our food in this country is wasted, thrown away.
It staggering, and that's
scary.
And that's probably across the world. I mean, America, I'm sure. Well, we know we're pretty bad, but this is a worldwide problem, and I always thought it might have been legalities. I know France has a specific program now where grocery stores are mandated to put out expired food for people to take.
Yeah, I think they're to the point that they're fined if they don't.
They're fined if they don't, which I don't know. I think that adoption here in the United States seems like, at some point in time you just have to throw all the whatever the ins and outs of it out of the door and say this is a tragedy. We need to get this food.
Yeah, just to help people, right? Yeah, and I think that's just a huge misconception, and I think it's getting better over the last few years that there is this huge liability. Or, I worked at a bakery in college, and I would ask, can we take this unsold bread somewhere? And I was always told, well, we're not allowed to do that. We will get sued or something, and that's just not true.
I think it's one of those things that someone said, and then someone believed and kept repeating. It's like people think it's illegal to drive with a dome light in your car on. Turns out, I asked a cop, it's not.
Yeah. So,
my whole life, I just believed it.
Be careful, because there are certain things, pre-cooked foods.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
There are rules. You can't. Like, if you're talking about you've got a bunch of casseroles left over at a cookout or whatever that's been out in 4 hours. No, you can't do that. You will. There is some liability.
Sure.
But loaves of bread or
bread.
things that are preserved, things that are canned.
Right.
Because
packaged.
Exactly. Because I know people used to go dumpster diving, or some still do, at grocery stores and find this amazing stuff that was great. And taking videos of it, and people are like, "This is awful. Why is this
throw this away?"
I used to do that Kentucky Fried Chicken in high school. I had a friend that worked there, and they'd throw it out at the end of the night. We go by and get buckets at like 10 p.m.
Hear a weird story.
Yeah.
When I worked at Long John Silver's, we had the same thing. We had to throw the fish away like every 40 minutes, and I was always like, "Hey, I'll take it to the dumpster. Don't worry. I'd be out in the dumpster eating fish like a raccoon."
Well, I did that.
That was not my proudest moment, Jeremy.
Somebody catches you back there.
My first job when I was 16, I worked in the candy department, and it was one of those things where you had on a little uniform and you were one of like Candy Striper or something, and we would purposely drop candy on the floor, and then we pick it up and eat it because we had to throw it away otherwise.
Absolutely. So this is, if you don't know anything about Glean, by the way, it's gleanky.org.
Yes.
Okay, go check it out, because I'm looking on there now. There's a ton of ways you can volunteer. You can get involved without volunteering. You can obviously make donations, but you can donate, volunteer, and there's all sorts of ways. You can even join and become a member.
And how much do you cover? Are you just Lexington in this region, or
No.
are there other Gleans?
Yeah, recently. So Glean, Kentucky is its own independent thing. We are part of an international association of gleaning organizations. We pay maybe, I think, $50 a year in just membership dues to go to their conference, but we're our own independent thing. So we were founded in 2010 here in Lexington. I think in 2019 expanded to Bowling Green, and just in December expanded up to Oldham County. So we have 3 regions of service now.
Out of here, you are kind of in charge of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a facility?
No, we're pretty lean. We've got an
lean.
office where we, do some printing and meetings and things, but we don't have a big warehouse like a lot of groups do.
I was wondering if that's in the vision of the future, because I, see pieces being put together here with Glean, and I love the fact that you're in different regions already. It seems like as a home base hub slash, just
Probably,
I don't know. But it seems
probably
like you guys are
some of
perfect
its
for a big suitcase.
resources.
Some of it's-
And are you totally reliant on just donations, or do you have a way of resource generation from what you do?
So yeah, we're basically all donation driven. There are groups I would love to shout out. Feeding Kentucky is a great group out of Frankfurt. That if you're a farmer with a lot of excess produce, they will pay you a very low wholesale price to deliver it to one of the Feeding America food pantries in the state. We're kind of working on the margins a little bit more, though, with those smaller amounts with smaller farmers, where they just can't really justify driving it, a couple hours to one of those food pantries. But there are really, really great options for farmers out there who, still want to make a little bit of money, and they should, in that case, make some
But
money.
to support your organization, you don't really have any like it's just donations.
It's
You
all
rely
donations.
on your
Yeah, we
donations.
write grants all the time. We do big
Grants.
fund drives in December. We're doing our fundraiser next week. We're hustling, to
What
get that
about,
money to come in.
Things like hobby farms, people who grow in their, not farms, people who just grow in their yards.
Oh, yeah.
Also, one of the things is church grows. A lot of churches will just have a garden, like almost like a community garden. It's
Yeah.
a great way if you, like you said, overrun with tomatoes or squash. You can sometimes just grow this stuff just to give to Glean, just as a way to get people
sure.
involved and also pay it forward.
Yeah, and we even have we'll give you a yard sign. We've got a Plant It Forward program where if you've got an extra little bit of space in your yard and you want to plant a row of potatoes with the intention of donating it to us, we'll give you a yard sign to advertise and everything. So,
That is a cool idea.
Yeah.
To do it on purpose.
Yeah, and we get calls. I mean, through the summer from so many home gardeners with a cherry tree or a pear tree or some tomatoes, and we're
I
making it
think
happen.
that's going to strike a nerve with people to hear.
And more and
when
more.
you're going to garden, go ahead and get the excess, plant more, and then have the intention that, okay, now I have a place to give this to.
Well, and that's why we started. I mean, we had all these home gardeners back in 2010 who they had all this
I get
extra
'em.
squash, and
They're like, Jeremy, can you use...
Great gardeners are like my dad. He would just plant so much stuff because he just loved to plant things.
Right.
And he had huge bounty, and I don't remember at the end, but it probably wasn't a good
Well,
ending.
it's like people who love to bake but don't eat everything they bake. You're just doing it because it's what
I have to
you
find
enjoy.
somebody to give it away to.
Right.
Well, you're surprised at how much food you can get off a little half acre or
Yeah,
quarter acre
that's
or
true.
an acre of food. I mean, you can get tons, like literally weighted tons of food.
Even a couple hundred square feet.
I mean,
Just a
have you
couple
seen
hundred square
the
feet of
firemen
garden.
over on Harrisburg Road? They
Oh,
got a
yeah,
nice
that's
little-
right,
I bet they can
firemen.
feed that firehouse pretty well.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's Glean, Kentucky, gleanky.org. Beets and beets and
Burgers and beets.
Burgers and beets. Thank you.
Burgers and
next week. It's next Thursday at Moon Dance. Get tickets. Go to gleanky.org. Ben, thanks so much for being on.
Yeah.
Oh no, thank you
appreciate
guys. This
it.
is wonderful.
Man,
yeah.
it goes by fast. We'll come back in a second. It's Food News and Chews Radio.